All right, well, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Today we'll be talking about the foundations of artificial intelligence and design thinking. Before we get into the conversation today, let's talk a little bit about Bridge Innovate. Bridge was established in 2003, bringing 20 plus years of experience in partnering with leaders to help solve problems and simultaneously build their leadership capacities. The real focus of Bridge has been on this co-design approach, aligning teams, fostering buy-in, and driving meaningful change, empowering organizations to help shape their future. We'll go through at the end of our call today. We'll spend a few minutes talking about some future offerings that Bridge has, and would be more than happy to answer any more questions about the methodology, the process, anything around those terms when it comes to the offerings of Bridge. So with that being said, a little bit about myself. So my name is Adam Wolcott. I've been a consultant with Bridge for past three and a half years or so. Outside of my consulting activities, I'm also a professor at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. My focus is on innovation and creativity. So I teach in the College of Business in the entrepreneurship department, but a big focus is on helping people become better at identifying and creatively solving problems. So outside of that, I've owned and operated several different businesses throughout the early parts of my career. So I'm able to bring kind of that entrepreneurial perspective to the table. All right. Well, again, thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited to dive into our session on AI and design thinking. Before we get into the materials, I just want to take a quick look at today's agenda. So we'll begin just with our welcome and overview to kind of set the stage for what we'll be covering. Next, we're going to begin our conversation exploring the fundamentals of AI. So what AI is, how it works, and why it matters in today's world. So from there, we'll dive a bit into AI and design thinking, where we'll spend some time discussing how AI can be integrated into the innovation process to help us enhance our creativity and problem-solving skills. From there, we're going to move on to a bit of an interactive challenge around brainstorming, where we'll be able to try our hand at applying AI and design thinking principles in real time. So I'll drive a little bit of that on my end, but you guys can certainly follow along with the AI of your choice. We'll follow that segment with a discussion around developing effective prompts, probably one of my favorite things to talk about. We'll discuss how to craft effective prompts to get the best results from AI. And then I don't think any AI discussion would be complete without mentioning some of the ethics around using information, gathering information, and really making decisions on that. So we'll talk about the responsible use of AI and some ethical considerations that come with it. By the end of today, our session goals are to help everybody understand how to leverage generative AI and design thinking to help enhance innovation, streamline problem solving, and apply AI responsibly. So I want this to be interactive. So I encourage you to participate, ask questions, and share your thoughts along the way. Before we dive completely in, let's take a quick poll. So who has used AI before? Have you guys never used AI? Maybe you've tried it a couple of times, use AI regularly, or like myself, can't seem to function without it. Perfect. So looks like a majority of the participants today are using AI regularly. About 6 people have tried it a few times or have never used it. And then there's a couple of us out there who can't function without it. So thank you for participating in that. I think it really helps get an idea of where we are and how we can cater our conversation today a little bit more around that. Perfect. Right. So let's begin with the fundamentals. AI is more than just a trendy buzzword, right? It's actively transforming industries from automating tasks to enhancing decision making. AI is really unlocking new opportunities across all sectors. On this slide, I want to break down how generative AI works and how businesses are using it to gain competitive advantages. So let's start by talking about what is generative AI. So generative AI is a branch of artificial intelligence that creates new content, and that's really key. So whether it's text, images, music, video, or even development code. Unlike traditional AI, which primarily focuses in on analyzing data and making predictions, generative AI can generate human-like responses to outputs based on patterns that it's learned. So a great way to think about this is comparing traditional AI to a calculator, right? So a calculator processes information and gives us a pretty straightforward answer based on a preset rules. So plus two is four, and it's always going to be that when we enter it in a calculator. Generative AI is more like an artist or a writer. It creates something new based on patterns and examples it has studied. So now that we know what generative AI is, let's talk a little bit about how it actually works. And I'm not going to get super technical on this, but I think at a basic level, generative AI can best be described as a technology that learns from existing information. That's the foundation, and creates new content based on what it's learned. So think of it like a really advanced autocomplete tool. So you're typing an email and your Outlook is trying to predict what that next word is based on what it knows. The prediction that should come next is based on the patterns that it sees in your writing. So when we think about how AI works, generative AI works, is first it has to learn. So it learns from massive amounts of data. Generative AI is trained by reading and analyzing huge amounts of data. For example, AI models like ChatGPT, which has traditionally been kind of my go-to model, learns from things like books, articles, websites, the information that we feed it, and more to help really understand how the language that we're using communicates. It then finds patterns and connections. So just like when we're learning a new language by seeing words and seeing how they're used in different contexts, AI picks up on patterns in data and words also. It learns what words or images usually go together and in what order. Then it begins to make smart guesses, right? So when you give AI a prompt like, I don't know, write a summary of today's news, it doesn't copy and paste from the internet. Instead, it predicts what the response should look like based on the patterns that it's learned. And I think this is one of the areas that it really differentiates from just doing a traditional Google search, like what is today's news? We're getting new and creative content out of it. And that leads me to my last point as we're talking about how AI works. It creates something new. So using all of that prediction, AI generates original content. And that's what we're after. It sounds natural and traditionally fits with what our request is. Whether it's as simple as writing an email, generating an image, or maybe even suggesting a business idea or a solution to a challenge that we're up against. It's coming up with something unique in real time. When we think about this, I also like to think about AI in a form where, could you imagine a chef who reads thousands and thousands of recipes, right? So instead of copying a recipe word for word, they can create new dishes by combining all of the things that they've learned from those previous recipes. And that's very similar to what generative AI does. It doesn't memorize and repeat information, but rather it mixes ideas together in a smart and creative way to give us a unique perspective on what it is that we're asking. So the third piece on this, again, trying to set the fundamentals or the foundations of generative AI. I want to leave this slide talking about how AI is helping reshape industries. So, what are some of these strategic advantages, and how is it making things differently? How is it making us act differently? So now that we understand what generative AI is and how it works, I think the most exciting part about all of that is how it's actually being used in the real world. And I think you guys would share that. I want to see how this can impact me as a consumer, my business, my organization. So AI isn't just for tech companies or futuristic robots. And a year ago, it felt very much that way. It's already transformed a lot of industries, I think, that we deal with every day, from how we shop to the ads that we see, even to the way businesses make decisions. And I want to look at a couple of examples. Customer service, I think, is one of the easiest things for us to consume. At this point, AI is answering our questions. I don't know, have you guys ever chatted with an online support agent and wondered, is this an actual real person? AI-powered chatbots are handling millions of customer service calls every day, and they're trained on the company's data. They are instant and also accurate. Companies like Amazon, American Airlines, Delta, and banks are using these these AI-powered chatbots to provide 24/7 customer service. And for us, we don't have to wait in line. We don't have to wait in a queue. We can get the answers that we want immediately. And these chatbots are getting smarter, right? There are some more advanced chatbots that start to recognize emotions in our voices and in our texts, and are starting to respond with things like empathy, which is a really, really interesting turn for us. So what this means is faster and more efficient customer service, fewer frustrating phone calls for us, and wait times. It's certainly a win for both the business and us as the consumer. The second quick example that I want to give you is around healthcare. So AI is saving lives currently. It's helping doctors detect diseases earlier and with more accuracy. Some hospitals are using AI to analyze things like X-rays and MRIs, and it can do this much faster than doctors can, helping us catch things like diseases earlier, and provide treatment a lot earlier. AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants are also making their way into healthcare by helping us as patients do things like schedule appointments, and get very early diagnostics on any issues that we're having. Drug companies are also using AI to pour through years and years of research and data to come up with unique ways to speed up the process of medications that can ultimately help people with things like cancer and other terminal diseases where there's a hard stop on these. So it's really interesting. Read an article the other day that there is a group of scientists who poured through about 10 years of research data. It took 4 days, and they had anticipated it taking something like 4 to 5 years for a human to be able to do it. So these learnings now become available to people to make decisions a lot easier. The last piece is thinking about how AI works in manufacturing and logistics, right? So AI is really helping us keep the world moving, helps factories run more efficiently by predicting when machines need maintenance, reducing breakdowns, and helping organizations save money. There's warehouses that are running robots that are powered by AI, that help sort and pack orders much quicker and efficiently than individuals can do. And FedEx and UPS are also using AI to help optimize the delivery routes. This helps us ensure that our packages arrive on time. So all this matters because we can see that AI is no longer just a futuristic concept. It's actively changing how businesses operate, and it's actively changing how we interact with businesses. So much so that on the business side, an article that was put out by McKinsey in 2023 reported that businesses that are leveraging AI, so those of us who are using AI in their processes, have seen a spike, 20% increase in customer satisfaction, and about a third reduction in their design cycle time. So they're able to keep customers happier and come up with solutions to problems quicker. That sounds like a win for any leader. That sounds like a really good equation. So what does this mean for us? I think that it's important as we wrap up this fundamental slide is that AI is not replacing humans. It's helping us work smarter. It's helping us make better decisions and be more efficient. For businesses, it's things like faster service, lower costs, right? Smarter data-driven decisions. Ultimately, businesses that are going to embrace AI will have a clear competitive advantage. We're already seeing that, whether this is things like improving our operations, enhancing our customer experience, or looking to unlock some additional revenue streams. All this is leading us into how we could leverage. We have an understanding of AI. We know the difference between generative AI, traditional AI. We know how it's impacting the industry. What I really want to focus in today is how can we leverage things like AI in the design thinking process? So I want to start by just giving a really brief overview of what is design thinking. So design thinking, it's this practical and hands-on approach to helping individuals and organizations solve problems by focusing in on the people we're designing for. So everything that we're doing, we're keeping the customer at the center. It's kind of like creating a new product or service by first understanding what people really need or identifying the problems, brainstorming creative ideas on how to solve those problems, and then being able to quickly test them out and improve based on feedback. Again, just like kind of refining a recipe until it's just right. It's this iterative process where we're continuing to add and take away. So, as we just experienced, AI is often seen as a tool for automation. But what's really exciting is the potential that it has for us to enhance creative problem solving and really add a layer of diversity in thought and perspective around the entire design thinking process. So let's quickly explore how AI can be used in each of these phases of the design thinking process, and then we'll get into to doing some things together. We'll start on the left with the empathize phase. So the first stage in the design thinking process is empathy, which this helps us create an understanding of the people who we're designing for. So traditionally, we would do this through things like interviews or observations, user research. And when we leverage AI, it can help us create AI-powered sentiment analysis that can help produce thousands of customer reviews and boil those down to help us identify pain points. Chatbots can be used to help simulate user personas, so help us really understand what customers are experiencing, and allows us to test some responses in different situations. So instead of going out and talking to customers, we can use generative AI to simulate that conversation to get some early learnings. And then AI-driven surveys can help us collect and analyze responses at scale, helping us identify trends a lot faster. So you think about sending surveys out to 10,000 potential customers or users or current customers. We can do this and we can identify trends a lot quicker. I think that as I was thinking about this, I'm trying to think of an example of how AI can really be used for to help build on this empathy idea. And I thought about this. Imagine creating a new mobile banking app. So what AI can do is it can help us analyze online reviews of maybe our competitors, looking at what people are saying about their apps to help highlight some of the common frustrations, opportunities for improvement, and build on what people already know. And we can do this really, really quickly. The second stage is around defining. So once we gather these insights, we have an understanding of who our customers are. AI can help us define the problem. And AI is great at processing. One of the best things that it does is it processing large data sets, helping us to identify themes, creating customer personas based on those trends. So what do the customers really look like? What are they saying? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And can certainly help us identify gaps in existing solutions. We went through recently, we were doing a strategy project where we had 14 different SWOT analysis that went out to different groups. And we were able to leverage AI to help us identify themes across those. These are things that, as an individual or even a team, would have taken days and probably would have had some real misses. So we can start to see how important AI is in helping speed this whole process up for us. So thinking about this, defining the problem, well, let's think about this. If we have let's say we wanted to design a better employee onboarding process. We can use AI to analyze things like exit interviews, sentiment surveys, HR data, and that can help us identify some of the most common reasons that employees are leaving or how they're struggling in the first 90 days. And what this does to us is this really helps us identify the right problem to solve. The third phase here is around ideation, and we're going to spend some time in the next slides working on some brainstorming activities and creating good prompts to use to get the best out of AI. But when it comes to ideation, what we're trying to do is we're trying to generate as many ideas as we possibly can. And AI tends to be a really powerful partner here. Is it helps us rapidly generate multiple ideas based on structured prompts, which we'll talk about here in just a few. AI is really good at helping us combine unrelated ideas to find new solutions. So things that we may not have noticed, AI can help us pick bits and pieces of different ideas to come up with a unique solution. And then ChatGPT, Midjourney, and some of the other tools that are out there can also help us refine our ideas and develop some visual backup. And I think that sometimes seeing something can be so impactful. And we'll talk about that a little bit. The last two revolve around prototyping and testing. So prototyping is about bringing our idea or solution to life quickly. AI can help us create things like wireframes or mock-ups, or I love using AI to create storyboards to really help put somebody in that scenario. I create a lot of like comic book type support for my ideas. It can also help us create some things like user test scenarios and help us even predict how people might react to those situations. Again, action allows us to create learnings, and the quicker that we can create those learnings, the better that our solution will be. So if you imagine that maybe you're out and you're trying to create a new website or e-commerce site, AI from the prototyping perspective can be really helpful in generating multiple layouts instantly and helping us test those layouts before we even start to code them or launch them. So we're thinking about how do we create something that people can interact with really quickly and we can create learnings off of those. And then the last step is around testing. So now that we have a prototype, let's put it out there and let's let people work with it. AI can be used to help automate some of this A/B testing, see how people are reacting, can help analyze user interactions and create some heat maps and things along those lines to help us identify problem areas. And then we also have this idea of using AI, which to actually interact with our solution. So putting it in a position of who our customers are and describing it and having it interact with a website, with a process to get some of those early learnings before we actually take it to our customers. So AI is a creative partner and not a replacement. So as we can see, again, AI is not here to replace human creativity. I truly believe that it's here to enhance and accelerate it. AI helps teams move faster. It helps us uncover insights, generate creative solutions to problems that might not be immediately obvious to us. But ultimately, it's us as humans, our empathy, our intuition, or our gut feeling, our ethical judgment. Those things combined with what AI is good at is what creates the true value. Any questions? All right. So maybe asking ourselves the question is, where is generative AI most helpful? And it can be helpful in a couple of different areas. First, acting as a springboard. So if you guys have ever experienced beginning a project or writing a paper or solving a problem, and you're staring at a blank piece of paper, or you're staring at a blinking cursor on your screen and you're just not sure where to start, I would certainly recommend using AI as a springboard to start and to begin to create some action. Also use this a lot when I'm running into creative blocks, to help quickly give me ideas to continue to move forward. I use ChatGPT AI almost all the time for inspiration for ideas. Inspiration on how to engage people, inspiration for how to attack a problem, inspiration for the itinerary for an upcoming trip. I think that this is one of the great ways that it can help us be innovative. Certainly helps us with the idea of iterating on rough ideas. So instead of trying to get something really close to perfect, let's feed ChatGPT the really rough idea that we have, and let's use it as a way to propel us forward down that journey of developing and iterating those rough ideas. And then, most of all, when it comes to AI and innovation, we have to use this as a partner in brainstorming. And that's what we're going to get into on our next slides, is really thinking about brainstorming in general, and how AI can help accelerate that process. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to go through and do just kind of a fun and fast-paced creativity assignment called the 30 Circles Challenges. So our challenge, you guys can watch along here. This is an early interaction that I ever had with AI in general, and it was just really impactful. It stuck with me. I've used this several times, and I just really enjoyed this. So if you have a piece of paper in front of you, go ahead and grab a blank piece of paper. If you have a tablet, that will work. But this activity is designed to help us think quickly, kind of break away from that rigid thought patterns, and help us boost some of our creative problem solving skills. So go ahead and grab a piece of paper if you have it, and or you can grab your tablet, if you're an electronic person. And let's just take a minute and draw out 30 circles. So similar sized circles, draw out 30 of those on your paper. All right. We should be close to getting those 30. So what I want to do here is I want you to take the next 3 minutes and turn as many of those circles as possible into something recognizable. So think about things. It could be a clock. It could be billiard balls. It could be a coin. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and just take about 3 minutes here and try to fill out as many of those 30 circles as you can. Couple of things. Don't overthink this. Just keep going. Challenge yourself to fill in as many of those circles as possible. The goal here is quantity over quality. You're slowing down a little bit, think outside the box, try variations of similar objects, different types of sports balls, combine circles into patterns, combine two or three circles into something. Got about a minute left. All right. Let's see here. So in the chat, how many did you guys come up with? Doug, nice. 18, 21, 21. Okay. 18. I got a 30 here. Okay. Susan, nice work. 20s and 18s. Okay. All right, great. Jeff got 9. Perfect. I think my max on this is 21. That's about the best that I can do. So your sheets probably look something like this. Got some people here who have been able to get 30, some people who have gotten less. And as you look into this, some of these are really interesting and cause the person putting the effort into to really focus on some different ideas here. Did you notice any patterns when you were going through here? Did you guys focus in on a certain type of object? Some of these examples, I've got a lot of like emotions, smiley faces and sad faces and like mediocre faces and Monday morning faces. I've got some suns and moons, um, a lot of coins. I thought that that was interesting, but there is some uniqueness here too, right? In the upper left-hand corner, the bottom, you see a chicken. I thought that that was that I thought that that was really unique, and a light bulb. So this is the idea of staying within those constraints of the circle and then using the circle to really help work through that. So this is what happens when we go through a process of brainstorming alone. This is a great example about how our brains generate ideas. But what I want to do is I want to explore what happens when we introduce AI into the process. So now let's see how AI approaches the same activity. So this is the prompt that we're going to use right here. And you guys can follow along if you've got whatever your favorite AI tool is. If you want to drop this prompt in there, you certainly can. We'll go ahead and do it together. So I've just got ChatGPT up here and put that prompt in. It's thinking.
Is it possible to drop the prompt in the chat?
Certainly. Thank you, Greg. There it is. I'll let you guys take a second there and play along with the prompt. And I'm going to move this one over here just so we can add this to our collection. This is today's. Just a minute while I move these around. I really want to focus in on what ChatGPT gave us today. All right. So, what do you notice about the results? You can come off of mute or you can use the chat. But just looking at these, what do you notice about the results? Okay, Kelly. Yeah, multiples like the soccer balls. It's like a slightly different view and shade on the soccer balls. Jenny, I absolutely agree. I would have expected a pizza slice. Doug only got 11 responses. Less variety. Interesting. So as we look at this, what I really want to get at is that things like generative AI, they're far from perfect, right? And that's why we need to be partnering and be very complementary with generative AI. So now that we've explored the creative outputs, I do want to take a step back and critically examine some of its limitations. I think that while generative AI can certainly help enhance some of our creativity, it certainly does come with some trade-offs, and I think we just seen some of those trade-offs. So while AI can quickly generate large volumes of ideas, that certainly helps accelerate the brainstorming innovation process. There have been, and I apologize, that article is a little blurry on here, but there have been some recent studies that suggest that AI can often reduce the diversity of novel ideas. The soccer ball comment that Kelly brought up, we're seeing different, just slightly different variations of this. And this happens because AI is trained on past data, meaning that its outputs are derived from existing patterns, like we learned earlier at the beginning of our conversation, rather than truly original thinking. So let's just keep that into context. I do think that this article on the right, I'll get a clearer version of that in the materials, but this is really interesting, and I think shows us that while generative AI is very, very helpful, we do need to be aware of its limitations. All right. Well, thank you for going through that with me. That's always a fun one. So now let's shift gears a little bit and let's start to talk about how to craft effective AI prompts to get better results. So we created this understanding of generative AI. We've carried this through the design thinking process, and I want to build on the idea of if garbage in, garbage out, right? Meaning that if we don't ask the right questions, we won't get great answers. So I want to start with a really simple challenge. And the question here is, how might we inspire households to adopt healthier eating habits? If we just take this prompt and we drop this into ChatGPT, how might we inspire households to adopt healthier eating habits? We are going to get some responses. If you read through these, they're not really impactful. Some of them are infeasible or not even plausible. And this is a broad question, and these general responses I think are great for discussion, but they're certainly not specific enough for us to generate truly useful information or data out of those. So I want to talk us through, how do we refine this? And this is what we're going to explore next, is how do we build a better prompt? And this is so this table is something that I use. I use this a lot, even in my own working. There's several key elements that we need to be aware of as we design our prompts or we design our question. And now that we've seen how AI responds to that generic prompt, how might we inspire households to adopt healthier eating habits? Let's refine our approach and get more creative and hopefully useful results. And we're going to go through this together. So, the first thing that we want to do is we want to define the role of AI. So, first, we want to tell AI who it is in the situation. So, in this case, you're a creative product designer. Why is that important? That's important because AI has a defined role, right? And it frames its responses differently based on what we tell it. It thinks like a designer rather than giving a generic list of ideas. And you can adjust this persona based on your scenario. So AI could be an entrepreneur, it could be a scientist, it could be a marketer, it could be, I think somebody said, an educator. And it depends on what you need. This is really important, is starting to define that persona. So on the right-hand side here, I've started to build out a prompt, and each one of these builds on itself to get to what our next slide will be, which would be the new kind of effective prompt. The second thing that we need to do is we need to define the audience. So AI performs better when it understands who the idea is for. So in this case, we are specifying, we want to design this prompt around children who are 5 to 12 years old in the United States. So this helps AI kind of narrow down its recommendations. And maybe in this case, instead of suggesting like meal prep ideas for adults, it'll focus more on fun and engaging solutions that appeal to kids. Think about how different the answers would be if we said the target audience was college students or senior citizens versus 5 to 12-year-olds. Then we have this idea of adding constraints and requirements. So now we get into some of these practical limitations that we certainly want to communicate when we're asking the question, because in the real world, ideas, they have to fit into certain criteria. So in this case, we specify that the product should be a couple of things. So it should be a physical product, so not software or a service. We want to sell it in grocery stores, and maybe we want it to be under $25. Again, those are going to change, and those are up to you to kind of like figure out what are those constraints. But this matters because without constraints, AI might suggest ideas like a monthly subscription box or an interactive cooking app that don't fit our needs. So we want to be as specific as we can with these asks. The idea of encouraging wild idea, the idea of encouraging wild ideas, the idea of really getting AI to think about what it is that what it is that we want what we want it to do. So in this case, we want to tell it, what do we actually need? So your task, AI, is to come up with a fun, novel, or ridiculous idea. The product doesn't need to exist yet. So we're kind of like, we're giving constraints, but then we're saying within those constraints, be really wild. And that's the idea. We need to encourage our prompt to be able to do those things. I found it to be really effective if we can provide some inspiration to AI with examples. So could we give AI some real world examples of similar products, like interactive cooking kits, educational plate sets, maybe some other things that you've run into? This helps AI better understand the type of creativity that we're looking for. In my mind, it's kind of like saying, here's what worked before. Now build on this and make us something that's even better. Without examples, AI might suggest some really wildly impractical or already existing ideas rather than something novel. And when these last two, I think, are really important, but formatting the output, this isn't a requirement. This is more to help us as the user. I always tell AI exactly what I want in the output. So in this case, give me 10 ideas. Each idea should be 25 words, and I want you to include a catchy name. I want this because I don't want AI just to dump out long, unstructured paragraphs that I've got to dig through, and it creates just as much work for me. Instead, I want neatly organized ideas ready for me to review, pick one, and then refine. So guys, by adding these 6 layers of context, we completely change the quality of AI's response. So this goes from a generic idea, which we've seen on the previous slide, and responses to something much more creative and usable. So let's take a look at what happens when we put the refined prompt into action. And this is what that refined prompt looks like. So all I've done here is I've just taken all of these kind of ideas that we talked about on the right hand side, and I've just combined those together. I'm telling it. So you're a creative product designer. You're trying to help households adopt healthy eating habits. You're going to be designing this for kids in the United States, and we need to sell it in grocery stores for 20. All of the things that we've talked about, we want to package it into this prompt. So our prompt has gone from one sentence, how might we inspire households to adopt healthier eating habits, to this well thought out paragraph. And this is where the real value comes in. And this is where it gets us out of that kind of garbage in, garbage out. I'm always very, very cautious about people who have used artificial intelligence to generate new ideas or look for problem or solutions to problems. If they don't spend the appropriate amount of time designing the prompt. If we can do that and using those six ideas that I showed you on the last slide, we can be really impactful. So here's some of the results. I think that there's some really interesting ones here. If you think back to the other slide, we were like when we first just asked the really generic response, it was like, hey, let's mail you some healthy meals, and you could go to the store and you can do this, or you could watch a video. But what about this like Veggie Heroes action set, a collection of superhero shaped veggie cutters and a comic book featuring characters like Captain Carrot and Broccoli Bay, inspiring kids to eat their hero fuel? Like, I mean, these are the types of responses that we get when we're intelligent about what we ask. If we ask it just, hey, give me this generic, help me solve this generic problem, we're going to get generic responses. So I know we're using healthy eating habits around children here, but this is applicable to anything that we're running into in industry. As an HR manager, let's put it in that perspective, as a new employee to a company, as as a talent acquisition coordinator. Here's the problem. I'm trying to hire recent college graduates, and you can go through and you can really build that prompt out, and now you're going to get some really useful stuff that's coming out of ChatGPT. And this is where the excitement is. I jumped way ahead. Sorry. All right. So the way we phrase our prompts determines the quality of what we're going to get out of this. But we don't have to stop at the text. As I mentioned earlier, we can also use AI to help make our ideas even more visual. And here's just a quick example. So maybe I wanted to build on that superhero Veggie Tales comic book. I can just simply ask ChatGPT, like, please create an image of the following idea. So the Veggie Warriors that we talked about. And this is just one of the several ideas that it came up with. But it doesn't have to be a picture of what's going on. If you are an HR manager looking to streamline your onboarding process, you could ask ChatGPT to give you an outline for what this would look like. You could ask it to write a memo to send to your team to outline the idea. There are a lot of different things that you can do here to help get visual. I just thought that this was really relatable and it was colorful. So I might eat my veggies if they're in a comic book. But now we're getting the idea here is that this approach is powerful for like product design, marketing concepts, storytelling, really getting creative around solving problems and being able to communicate those. So when we're using AI, guys, don't just think about words, think visually. AI can certainly help us bring those ideas to life. All right. I know we're running close to the end of our session here. But I want to talk about this because the ethical considerations around using AI continue to get momentum every day. So AI is certainly shaping the way companies do things like hire, the way doctors diagnose, and really even how like some police forces are enforcing laws. So this is a big deal. we have to ask ourselves what happens when AI is trained on things like biased data or makes decisions we can't explain. It's not magic, right? It's only as good as the data that it learns from. And if that data is flawed, AI can amplify the problem instead of fixing it. And it's up to us to be aware of that. For example, an AI hiring tool that was trained on past decisions could start favoring male candidates over female ones. Why? Because maybe historically more men were hired. So AI, instead of fixing the bias, it actually reinforces it. And these are some considerations that we definitely need to be aware of. There's a couple of other ones that I want to touch on. Bias and fairness with AI learning from historical data. If that data has any biases in it, AI is going to continue to learn from them. That's really, really an important thing for us to keep in the back of our mind as we're exploring the use of AI within our organizations or within our daily life. These bias and fairness, they're not just unfair, like they can be really dangerous. One of the growing areas has been around privacy and data concerns. So if you think about how much AI knows about us, every Google search, every purchase, every time you talk with Alexa. And I often believe that even every time I don't talk to Alexa or Siri, it's listening, right? So who controls that data? And what happens if that's misused? So I'm always very cautious about businesses and about individuals putting private data out to things like ChatGPT to make decisions. I don't think I would take the last 5 years of my company's historical financial data and dump it out there and say, hey, analyze this for me. I'm not going to put a bunch of PII, personally identifiable information about my employees out there. It's very similar to Wild Wild West, right? Things are evolving, and kind of like that idea of structure and responsibility is being developed. The last thing is about accountability and transparency. Could you guys imagine, like, if a bank used AI to approve or deny loans, and as that evolved, no one really knew how AI was making those decisions? If someone was treated unfairly or denied a loan, how do they appeal that? Um, if AI is making important decisions like hiring or loan approvals, we need to understand why those decisions are being made, and we need to continually be able to check those. So definitely not a cruise control type situation. There's been several instances where AI has failed, things like hiring biases in healthcare. There's a recent article where a healthcare company provider in Arizona was using AI to prioritize care, and it was provide care recommendations is prioritizing wealthier patients because they had a history of spending more on care than lower income patients. This was an unintended consequence, right? They didn't realize this until after the fact. But as humans, we have to stay in the loop and we have to be aware of those things. So, in conclusion, AI has the power to do amazing things. But it's up to us to use it the right way. If we stay aware of like these critical ethical challenges and it can't be standalone and it needs us, then yes, I think it's going to benefit everybody. But if we lean too much on AI, there are some paths that I don't think that you or I or organizations want to go down. So perfect. I'm right on time. I apologize for that. I got a couple minutes behind with the screen markups. I apologize for that also. But do you guys have any questions? I can stay. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. I know that other people have responsibility. So if you need to drop off, thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed it. You have my contact information and Bridget's contact information. Be more than happy to continue the conversation around this with anybody. But if you want to stay, please stay, and we can continue an open discussion. Doug, yes, we'll get the slides out. Yes, I'll have Luke help me with that. Perfect. Any questions, guys?
Hey, Adam. I'd love to know, this is Lindsay. Are you able to ask the AI why it gave you certain decisions? Will it back it up with the evidence it chose or the decision-making process?
Yeah, that is a great question. Yes, it will, Lindsay, but it will also tell you when it makes stuff up. So I was using it for research a couple of months ago, and it was giving me prompts and ideas that I was just like, man, that I know a little bit about this. That doesn't seem right. So I would ask it, like, where did you find this information? Show me, give me the article, give me the paragraph. And I don't know the exact response, but it was something along the lines of, well, I really didn't find that anywhere. I gleaned it from like these other articles. So it was, you have to be really careful in that perspective of it. But I have asked it, can you give me articles that support this finding? You summarize this data. Is there like an impactful quote? And it's taken me right to a site or an article or a data set that it pulled that information from.
Adam, I've found Perplexity does a better job than ChatGPT for me when I'm looking for specific references to things that it's pulling out.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever used that,
I
but
have not, Greg. I appreciate that.
of course. Thank you for this. I'm doing basically the same thing next week, and
Oh, I
I
love
love hearing that. Okay, good. I'm doing that. Yes, good. Check. Yes, check. So
it.
thank you. Makes me feel
Greg, I
like I
wish you
know
would have gone
something.
first so then I could have had that confidence.
Oh well, sorry. Well, I did in Orlando last month. Sorry you weren't there.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, you guys have been fun. I appreciate your time this afternoon, and we'll get a follow up out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Adam.
All right, Greg, Lindsay, everybody, I'll see y'all later. Have a good one.